full of vanity.
My father had died in January. I was laid
Sometimes
off in July from the first good job I'd
to
ever
love
had.
someone
I was living alone in a poor
I do not
neighborhood.
entirely know.
I'd registered for courses for my graduate
Anyone
degree.
I say
However,
I love,
the loan had been
that I
refused.
have just met.
The camera
I
tech
say
threatened to
I love
call the
them.
cops to take away the camera
I
I
love
had borrowed.
them. That's all. And
I had
people have
film
been saying,
shows
"Where's your
at
proof?"
school and at home
Wait a week.
and met a wonderful artist.
Act deaf.
I had a
Don't
one-night
turn around.
relationship, discovered he was a
Wait for him
bisexual,
till you
and
least
he was
expect him,
leaving
when you don't need him.
town
He'll
next
come.
week.
At the least expected time, he'll come.
I had accumulated about 900
Comes
rolls
to
of
that.
film to date
When?
in my refrigerator. Couldn't afford to get it
When?
processed, and one night decided I was not going to eat
When
anymore
is he going
anything
to
that would
come
cause
here?
pain.
Or
This included root
am I going
vegetables,
to meet
which
him?
had to be replanted
On what
so they
street?
could grow their own seeds.
What
This is
town?
sign language. I am in a
sure
fever of what is
of
called a
what
nervous
exactly has happened
breakdown.
in my lifetime. I know several times
And
I
you
have
are
lost
supposed to
time,
know what this means. This
and
is
the
great
earth
and
has shook
vast,
under my
deep
feet.
sign language, and everyone should know the
And
reason.
Sometimes it has seemed to be the breathing of another being, and I thought him surrounding me, and perhaps this is true.
I had had 3
And it is also
breakdowns
possible
previously and been hospitalized and was terrified.
that the
Went
world
out into the dark to plant the vegetables, got to the
shook
chain link fence at the community
in its
garden and chickened
destruction.
out and came
And
back.
it is also possible that I don't know. And it's also possible that I'll know everything. Well, perhaps I love a man who can travel through time,
I thought I was
who can
in
see
love with
all
a
time,
TV star.
whose eyes
Had
are
confessed
unguided.
this to my mother, finally.
Love which fires the cosmos, love which
I
supplies
was
my
in love
delusions,
with several
which
men
supplies the
and keeping a
ground
constant
breathing for
diary.
me,
In this scene and
which
in all these
supplies
scenes, I'm trying to take pictures of
the
deep
sky,
significance. This
dropping a
bag
soft
is not
rain
a
on me,
toy.
not
Everything would have
by
significance
love,
later on for my true love,
rewinding the
who would synchronize his film, his diary,
I have thought
with my
of
film.
possible worlds and the way it can be.
There's my cat Amy,
There's an intermission now.
13 years old, in the corner, and there I'm keeping every single scrap of film I ever cut out or ever had
Okay.
for my true love
So
someday.
much like him.
Old Amy was my
I
only
hadn't seen him
companion.
earlier in the performance.
I really
Is he
couldn't
in
live
it?
with anybody.
Always?
I was
That fellow
just too
up there?
freaky.
Oh, I think he is. There are a number of them. In different
My mother and I went out
I think he's been
to
Victoria
a
at one point, too.
play,
I
a
didn't see him
three-penny
before.
opera. And the man I was in love with, wait a second, he's in England. No,
I mean,
for
I didn't see
5
him
minutes
before.
he's on
Tonight here
the stage,
on the
in an
stage.
outdoor theater. Thought he might be a vegetarian. Thought he might like to animate that scallion
He was dressed like Doctor Who.
with children, and there's a significance to that T, and who knows what it is.
That suit on his show.
And I
Yes.
lived a double life.
Why did I identify
Out
so
to
much
my
with
mother's
that
house
lady?
to help her
The lady in
redecorate
red, the lady in red, the fancy costume, the warrior
my
costume.
parents' bedroom.
Because he looks like Dr. Who, and you've got a crush on Dr. Who. That's
Then why was he there?
My mother was
Was he appearing
humoring
there
me.
because of my? Are you walking around in my dream, mother? Mother?
No,
Are you walking around in my dream? This is an interview.
I couldn't convince her. I had seen
Then
him
why?
on stage.
Does the thing that you're observing with me now match the vision that I've been having?
My old cat,
Could you please
my
explain?
other old cat, Buddy, who was living with my mother since my landlord would only refuse
Well, then why are they on the stage?
to have any more than one cat.
There's a
Then
coincidence again?
he was
Oh,
very
Mother.
paternal. He was a little crazy too. He
Owe
was
me a quarter,
carrying
Mother.
this
Do you think
woolen
this is a
ball around
coincidence?
from room to room.
How much do you want to bet that this is a
And I
coincidence?
thought, oh, this is the
that
world
this
he's
is a
carrying
coincidence
around.
that I suddenly have a crush on Doctor Who, and I realize
He'd
that I
yowl
is the guy I want.
as if it were
And
a
then he suddenly
kitten.
appears on stage in the theater the same night I tell it to you. Tell me, how much do you want to bet? Come on.
I got nervous.
If you wanted to bet.
My mother
You don't
got
wanna bet a
nervous.
nickel? It's
That
not a
made
dream,
me
it just
nervous.
appeared in front of you. It happened in front of you. That you've seen Doctor Who on TV. We've watched it
And
together.
everything had significant
Well, no, he
meaning.
Doctor.
Every
curly
sign would
hair.
mean something later on.
Well, that's right. We only saw it once.
driving into Boston to
He's a very
collect
handsome man.
unemployment compensation. Get back home again. The camera
I know.
was taped together
All right.
by then, and the light meter really had stopped functioning, and I was guessing all the exposures.
Okay.
But I was terrified of
All
losing
right.
it, with the cops showing up at my
Anyway, I'm
door
a
and
selfish person.
taking it
Here I am
away.
interviewing my mother as to why my life is happening to appear to mirror my fantasy. No, my vision, or whatever I've been able to see. Now, yipe! Where does that put me?
This is called
Oh,
mania.
beautiful.
Everything has significance. Everything's heightened.
What
Everything's
is that?
wonderful. I'm going
It's
to
miraculous.
fall in love with the God. I'll
Miraculous.
see the man I love somewhere around. Oh, maybe he's like a lion.
The
No,
revolution
no,
will
he's
not be live.
he's like an
It will be
eagle.
televised. The revolution will not be televised.
He's
be
like
live.
a
The
Hura
revolution will be a
Mazda.
film.
No, he's
revolution will not be
83.
on
He'll
the
be
film.
83 years old when. Oh, it's 2:42 somewhere. It really all had significance,
Your
and
picture
he would put it
It's on the
together
moon,
later on when I found him.
imprinted. Is not memory. I cannot help myself. Not only does it look like him, it also looks like a clown. Ah, I saw you growing up. I saw you
Again,
growing up.
waiting for the Last Judgment to come on
First I was a
TV,
speck,
and I'd be there with my
and then I
camera,
became alive.
ready to catch the first word
I'm
from
all right.
God.
All the
But it
words say
appeared
I'm
very
alive.
highly unlikely.
And not
Everything in my
theater
house
either.
would have to be photographed, of
Never
course,
theater permeation.
because it would be
soldier.
significant later. I wasn't going out to
Won't you enjoy
the
a
film
soldier?
series I had tickets for.
Didn't
As
do
I
any
was staying
harm.
inside, it was too scary a
Never
world.
did
Me
any
and the
harm.
wasp, we had to hide. And I don't know why
It's
I did
okay.
this, but probably I thought God
It's
told
all
me
right.
to
Take it
eat the
easy.
tofu with the miso sauce
Rest and
with
enjoy.
my hands.
Relax. Don't
I
worry.
was trying to be a complete
Take care of yourself.
vegetarian. I thought at the very least I could, show my compost
And
heap and all the
be
vegetables
happy.
and food I ever ate and grew in my garden.
Take a light.
So a bunch of
Take a minute, take a
vegetarians
second,
at some
wait a
sort
second,
of
wait a minute.
restaurant at the end of
Right now.
time.
Wait a day. Wait a week. Wait
I'd
a
make a film
month,
called
a year.
Lamps from
Wait 2
Outer
years, 3 years,
Space.
4 years.
I'd exorcise
5
Richard
years,
Nixon and
25
all the war
years.
making that came out of the White House
50 years.
and all the drug running
100 years.
and the cocaine. I thought there'd be
1,000
snow
years.
the
A million
day
years.
the
A billion
cocaine
years.
cartels were
Trillion
exorcised.
A billion
Snow
years. And a billion
Cocaine
years.
on the rose garden.
And then you can do it this again.
I do magic.
Never do this again. Continuing. 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 When you have to do this again, it will
He'd
be
keep
never.
a notebook somewhere out
Is
there in the
never
world, my
possible.
true love would. With all sorts of
about the
notes. My
implications
love
of
is
never.
throwing away the maple syrup,
Guess
the
what?
vinegar,
It goes on.
the knives and the forks.
Relaxed.
She showed me what she
This is
ate
not a
today
nervous
and that her
breakup.
body
We'll
was
all
still
stay
alive.
the way we are, happily ever after. Amen. Thank God we're ever after. We're after ever. No, no,
There was a
no.
little
We are after.
corner store down the block and I
We are
drank up
ever
all
after.
the
Happily
wine
live
they had in their
ever
back
after.
room.
I saw him tonight. Want me to play some music now? This is just a dream.
There was a step
And you
out
have just
toward the
been
corner
dreaming.
store,
Yes,
get the
this
wine,
film will
bring
be
it
shown
back, stock up,
For every child on the spaceship
and stay
leaves the
inside
planet
in the
Earth
heat
when the
the
sun
end
blows up.
of summer.
Well,
It was just
Bertolt
too
Brecht
scary.
wins something.
One day,
What does Bertolt Brecht win?
I took my
He wins
backpack
3
over to a
pennies,
friend's
yes!
house and said, "May I stay with you?
Guess
I'm
what?
too
God is
frightened to
all
go
there is.
anywhere
God is
else."
good. Remember that?
I have to
Boop, boop, boop,
hide.
boop. Guess what?
Very accomplished painter and a
I'm
single
just
mother.
making this up 'cause
I
I'm laughing
admired
at it
her a
because
great
it's laughing
deal.
at
Still
you.
do.
And
So
I'll
my
tell you,
friend
I know some
Susan
good folks out there that are pleased
humored
to
me,
join
but
you
very
all.
pleasantly, and we
And we're
watched
all gonna have a good
television
time, us
while her
illusions.
son did some painting.
We're going to be happy illusions from now on.
She's
Yes,
demonstrating
happy,
her
happy,
Tai
happy,
Chi
happy
sword
illusion.
dance.
We get it all, friends. Yes, we get it right to.
The movie
I tell you,
was an
right
appropriate
to
title.
The end of the universe. Is it
The
going to
turning
collapse?
point.
Yes? And I have
For
finally
me, it
found
was.
my Santa Claus.
I couldn't get to grad school. I couldn't afford to go there. The camera was leaving. I didn't have a lover. I had a crush on a man who was actually in England, but I'd seen him in my own hometown just a couple of days before. I was high on pot, high on wine. I was high. I was flying.
It is love.
And of course, there'd be tremendous significance in the turning point,
Oh, that marijuana.
and in all my friends' paintings for that matter.
The universe got born, it grew up, and then
Well, I still
discovered there
believe
was
in
heaven
that.
on
The
earth.
paintings
And guess
have
what?
significance, but
Guess
as for the
who
turning
said it?
point,
Uh-oh.
I just wasn't
Who
an
said it?
accomplished person.
Who said?
I wasn't a trained
This is the
professional.
hub
I
of
hadn't
the
even
universe.
begun showing my diary.
Do I remember
I'd
my
already
name?
accumulated 25
Does
rolls of
anybody
diary
remember my
film,
name?
half an hour each. Couldn't process it. It wasn't slim. Oh, I'd been losing weight. I was losing weight in a fever. I was down to 123 pounds. I certainly didn't look like these folks.
Peace. We will love peace.
And the hope of having a social life at school
Never leave it. Never,
had been
never,
pulled
never,
out
never,
from
never.
under me by money. The lack of it. My own movie was a home movie. It had no credits. I exorcised Richard Nixon that night and coughed up black ash from my lungs. I had been smoking a lot of cigarettes. Did a witchcraft ritual, so to speak, threw away a diamond ring in the midst of some papers, walked out in the morning, put my backpack outside the door, walked across the street to a construction site, lay down in a pit of sand, and hoped to be buried alive. And was put away in a mental hospital for 3 months, where I was beaten, overdosed on drugs, nearly raped, lied to back and forth, and finally forced on drugs at the very end, and then I sobered up. It was a hellish experience. It wasn't exactly therapeutic. And that was a teaching hospital.
I feel so
The
like a
day
big
after I
spider
got out of the
on web.
hospital, I borrowed a camera
People
again.
move toward very slowly.
This is my therapist. He doesn't know he's being taped, supposedly.
Thing, I have to really kind of
I
take
went
things
on to
kind of
welfare. I was on food stamps and
Comfortably.
fuel assistance and everything.
and mark my progress in terms of a week
And
at a
going to
time.
therapy once, twice a
Like
week,
I wrote
and
some
family
Christmas cards 2
therapy.
weeks ago that I really,
The fall had
very
happened while I
effusive.
was gone. There's
and
the
then
mental
on
health
Tuesday
center,
when I came in,
and this is the day hospital I was supposed to
my
go
mother
to
had come
for
over the night that
therapy.
night
It wasn't
and stayed over and gave
therapeutic.
me a ride, saying last night she
It was
came in.
depressing.
She
School
gave me a
was
ride, so
less
I came in.
depressing,
On Tuesday,
even though the grad seminar
wrote
was about
8
Shiva,
letters,
the
7
god
letters
of
to
death.
people that I hadn't.
I feel about that
The
way
people,
when I
the
feed
friends
my
I talked
cat
about, I
cat
wanted
food.
to
And this was the
retrieve.
guy I had the crush on, Doctor
And-
Who. I still think he's Jesus. I thought he was Jesus
I think
then.
it took a lot of doing.
But
because
that's
I
a
had to,
weird world.
you
Keep
know,
your delusions
I
going.
had to say I was,
In
that I
the
was
India
embarrassed about
restaurant
what I had talked to them
in
before.
Cambridge, the only
I-
vegetarian
You know,
restaurant
what
my
I'd written
mother
to
and
them
I
before,
could
what I'd said
find.
to them before. I know when
Or
I'd come out of mental hospitals
Thanksgiving.
before, I'd sent letters out saying, oh, I'm all right now, all is well. You know, and I write the same sort of thing when I'm in the hospital, except with some added delusions.
Still, is take pictures of every detail.
I,
man I'd
I
had
said
an
I
affair with
I
had been
felt
named
humiliated
Bartholomew
by myself,
as a
felt
middle name.
embarrassed, and I'd understand their
Had to take a picture.
hesitancy in contacting me again.
I'd love to be able to tell you
I
the recipes
described
for all this
the
food,
ways in which
but
they've been a help
supposedly I
to
would
me.
remember everything later.
No? Yeah.
Went back to binging.
I'm not really sure completely. My mother is a companion, often.
Does that change?
Yeah, before she would be accompanied by my father, who was very depressed, to whom I felt a debt to account for my life again.
Didn't have the nerve to go running in that
I
old
couldn't.
neighborhood. Go out
At
to
the-
the house where my mother
At
lived
the same
and
time, I
bring my
had
laundry.
some support at school.
This was a much
And-
more beautiful surrounding than the concrete jungle outside of my home in Boston.
And yet I don't have
Where
to report to
arsonists
my
had
father
burnt down
what I'm doing in school.
houses and factories.
When I looked at my old diaries, I realized that I had written
Winter
since
was coming on,
1978.
and I started
Spring of
drinking heavily.
1978, I started taking a social psychology course. The teacher's first lecture was on fear of success. And I just went, I'm so grateful to him for
I
telling
thought
me
this
all
is
these
my
things.
trousseau. It may be the small details of
developed
my
a really
life
huge
and
crush
some
on him.
major
He
ones.
told me,
But it is
he told us all
true.
to start writing
So,
diaries.
Someday a
started
guy would
writing
say,
diaries.
"What have you been doing all your life?"
Prolifically.
I'd say, "Well, here's something."
And then when I look in my papers, I find out there was this just huge amount of stuff. A lot of it's just drivel. It's awful. That I've written in the last 4 years. And I know that before that,
Baking my own pilgrim bread.
I know in high school I was a prolific diarist. But then when I went to college, it started, I just kind of faded away. And
I could end up on a bench
the
if
thing
I
is, you
didn't
see,
look
that
out.
I can't find anything from before 1978, hardly anything at all.
Now it seems to me that
This
the
is
pictures
just
I
this
was taking were those that
Jump
evoked the
from
mood I was in,
1968 to 1970.
which was about as lonely as a cigarette butt at that point. Honestly, I had made no friends.
It's reflected in my school papers.
I was just living with
I
my cat.
hadn't. I didn't know what I'd done with him. I think, how foolish, because I wrote things like 20-page
Friends
papers.
had
when I was
deserted
talking
me.
to Bridget last Thursday
It was just too
about
crazy.
paper writing.
It
I was
was just too
realizing,
crazy. I'd
and
go
I
to the
realized
Boston
this
Food
before,
Co-op
quite
and
to the
work.
extent that there were
Wednesday
several very
night,
good
they
papers I
had
wrote, but I didn't even
inventory.
bother
You could
making
drink
copies
beer
of
and
them,
listen to
or
violin
cartons.
music and be all alone. Come home with dates and eat them
Sure.
all. What happens to the
So
last
10 years, there
grasshopper?
times when I threw myself away, when I got,
Throw all those things away.
I guess so, notebooks. I don't have any notebooks and
School.
courses in that during that time.
I had been asked to have a
About
film
those courses, very little.
in the first night celebration in
A
Boston.
lot of loss.
This was a big
A
deal.
lot of
I was going to have a
throwing away.
public show.
That's been my
It
way
was a
in the
big
last
deal.
few years.
I sat
Whenever I've
down
had
with
a
Gestalt
breakdown.
therapy one day and started out the long list. You
Whenever I
type
had a
down a
breakdown,
list, or you
I've,
write down a list. I am now.
I've thrown away,
Now I am.
literally like vacuum.
It ended up, now I am
cleaners
smoking a
and
cigarette, now I am
wearing
typing, now I
blender
am
and
thinking, now I am sweating,
my
now I
kitchen
am
stuff.
smoking another cigarette, now I am tearing my hair.
It was like when I totted it up. after it was
Eventually
like
you get through to some
$2,000.
feelings. And
Yeah,
it's not now I am
the
going to,
sculptures
it's now
I've
I am
taken
doing.
Smashed.
So as to keep
In
myself in the now
1969, I
and
got
out of
put down by a
fantasy.
man. I came back from, I got involved with a lot of guys who really put me
My
down.
mother and I
for
would
the
go to
reason it's a
films.
lump, I think. Kind of
I was a
but
companion for her. Since my father had died, I was an ex-boyfriend who came over
Before I went to mass
with a relationship I was trying to discourage.
Oh,
Making God's eyes for Christmas,
I think
since I was poor.
I didn't make many suggestions of things to do together. I think I was pretty dependent on the guys. And I wasn't very cool if they, I'd followed them
Guys at
around.
the corner
I think
store
they'd let
got to know me real well about the food.
Well-
I was eating beets again, you see, so I had recovered. Bingers get to know the people in corner stores very well.
Romance.
They go from corner store to corner store to corner store. So, sort of like an alcoholic who doesn't want to be known in their own neighborhood. It was something I had been trying to get out of. This is the view
got
from the
involved
mental
in a whole
health
bunch of
center.
relationships.
I was still terrified of ever going back there again, and I was resisting all attempts
gave,
by
I
my
would give people
therapist to have
in
me
these
on
relationships
lithium
and
or
break
some
them up.
other
I would give
drug.
them some kind
I
of
knew they
art
had terrible side effects. I'd had them before. I'd had
object that
overdoses.
I
I
made.
wasn't willing.
That was very precious to me. As a result, I have some things in my
Some meaning to that,
portfolio,
I'm
but
sure.
a lot of it I don't have because I gave it away.
I went back to the old place where I'd been
I know I
employed, the
started,
Harvard School of Public Health, about the only thing I could find in the neighborhood to look
I
at.
had a tremendous edge of tension in me.
There's barbed wire all around the
There's
bicycle
tension in me right
cage.
now.
That's the city. I would rather live in the
Well,
country.
it's something for one
This
thing
is the
about
view
it,
at
that
school,
I'm not
as we
on the
discussed.
razor blade. I don't feel like
Shiva,
I'm
the
on
god
blade.
of death.
I have a feeling this being
Oh.
I've noticed, I had to tell you that, noticed the rash and the flush, at night, just after I've taken it.
I was
And
on
get nervous
niacin.
about that. I don't know how many studies
Very
have
cheap
been done on long-term
attempt
effects
at
of
self-therapy. I'm showing all my groceries. He shall know what I was eating.
It's a water soluble vitamin.
taking it.
How much are you taking?
Well, last night I went down to 1,500. Before that, last week or something, I've been taking 2,000 milligrams a day.
Mistletoe hung over my bed until it was gold and
You
dried.
might want to go as high as 3 vaccines.
Yeah.
This is the sort of thing that's offensive to a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Think of a fork going in you? No, please.
But I don't feel, I haven't
So I
been
eat tofu
crying and
again
shaking
in various
and
combinations.
everything this year.
Something's a little different.
Something's a little different.
Frost
Yeah.
had killed my garden.
That's a.
I had been able
I
to
know,
live
well, it's a sensation
for a number of
again,
years
it's
on what I could
it's like
produce
a-
from
I
a
have to
10-foot
put
by
on a
20-foot plot of ground.
Iron
Completely organic.
corset or something like my stomach feels.
A lot of these plants were perennials by now.
Just a whole bunch of tears.
Those, the last tomatoes, ones left in the ground, got hit by frost while I was in the hospital. I hadn't been able to harvest all my garden. There was
I don't
one
know,
tree in
some
the garden,
hunger of some
of course
kind.
I found that significant. The
And
Queen
I
of
filled it
Heaven
before
tree.
By binging, by eating, just tremendous amounts of food. Lately, I've been doing some of that again.
Again, to visit my mother. I'd do yoga out in the snow. Help her with things like shoveling the driveway.
Across my temples, a door, on my forehead, just a door.
I used to want to have my wedding
An
in that
emptiness
little
in the
gazebo.
stomach.
I had excerpted
And,
the
heart
Song of
pumping.
Songs, removing the war and the sexism to use as a wedding ceremony. But if I showed up to a show where there was an opening, all the champagne was gone, This guy kept coming back, so I showed him all the stuff I had written in the mental hospital,
open
and
to
the
the extent my
possibility
eyes-
of relationship with him was cut off. I was cutting myself off, though I left a candle for Jesus. This is the epitaph my father wrote for my brother when he had died at the age of 9, and now it was for him also. On the morrow, in the sun, we will see you, hold hands, ride the morning star,
Blank brain.
and stand together on the high mountain top, overlooking all.
One thing.
My true love would want to
Really
see me
relieved that I
someday.
don't
This is for
shake
him.
and cry. That's happened so many times.